Hey there, this is Coach Leo Young, and we're going to do a lesson right now on the spring goal setting, team goal setting, as well as your individual goal setting, how to properly set team goals and properly set individual goals, some definite do's and don'ts for both, as well as we're going to talk about how you structure the season so that you can make sure that you're in the best position possible to win the end of the season. So we're going to get into that right now. Goal setting. So I'm going to break this section up into the team goal and what that needs to be, and then your individual goal, so you, the player, and what that needs to be. I'm going to start first with the team goal because that's important. A lot of teams, a lot of coaches, and a lot of players mistake exactly how that team goal should operate. So let's dig into that right now. A team goal. Here is some do's and don'ts. First of all, the coach is generally the one that sets the team goal. And the do and the don't on this one is pretty simple. Now, there are some teams that won't set it this way. I'll explain what that means in a minute. The definite don't is we're going to win a state championship. We're going to win a national championship. Never set a season goal to win a national championship or a state championship. There are a few teams that will do that, but those are your hyper elite teams. Those are the ones that are at the top. I mean, those big time teams. Your FSUs, your Floridas, your Vandy's, your LSU's, and then of course your IMG and your modern day type of schools. That's more appropriate for them. But for the vast majority of everybody else, we want to set district championship. That should be the season goal, to win the conference or the district championship. Why is that a better goal? Well, there's several reasons why that is a better goal to have. The district championship is what the season is built on foundationally. So in isolated district conference, if you're in college, it's a conference championship. If you're in high school, it's a district championship, but they both work the same. So you're going to have scheduling that happens where you'll have non-conference teams or non-district teams that you'll play, and then you'll have district teams that you'll play. And that district record is compiled to seat that tournament at the end of the year to play for that district championship. So it's a part of the reason why we want that district championship to be the goal for you is because that's how the season is built. The entire season is built in district or in conference. What it also does is it rewards the full body of work. So when you hear people talk about it's a process, you've got to commit to the process. You've got to be in that process. That is absolutely important. And because the season is built to that culminating event, it rewards those who commit to that high level of purposeful process. That's your hitting routine, pregame. That's what you do postgame. Pitchers, it's your recovery. How you structure your rotational bullpens. The drills that you do. All of that works in that process to reward you for that district championship. It rewards the season process. It also is a larger sample size for what we're trying to accomplish. And what that means is this. Because you're playing 25 or 60 games or whatever it is, that large sample size allows for those hot streaks to cool off and those cold streaks to heat up. It allows for guys to get injured and come back. It allows to really, for the length of the season, knock the edges off and knock the luck off. Now, there's always luck involved, and luck happens best really at the end of the season. And I'll explain a little bit more how luck plays into this in just a moment. But because of the number of games that are played, it really does typically reward the best players on the best teams. Now, in that sample size, also what happens is it's enough games to where you'll start to see a separation player to player, which will be your goal, your personal goal in a little bit, player-to-player separation for those better players or those players that are performing better, and also for those teams to separate themselves, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit too. That 25 or 60 game schedule allows for the separation to happen between individual players and individual teams, creating a very, very visible focal point or funneling down to the end of the year tournament, where some teams will say we're out of it by mid-March, and other teams are in it the entire time. And it allows for that separation again of teams and of individuals so that the best play for the championship. Now let's jump to your individual goals. Okay, so your individual goals, it depends on what you are. If you're a player that's already in the lineup, I'm going to talk about you in a second. Let's talk about the player that's trying to break into the lineup, that maybe is moving up a level, trying to go from JV to varsity, or that freshman who really wants to get into the lineup for the college team. You're going to have individual goals that are going to be different from everyday players. What you need to do for your individual goals is set a time with either your position coach, like your pitching coach, or the head coach. It just kind of depends on the dynamic. And you need to come up with a goal with your coaches which would support your work that you're going to put in for that. Here's an example. If you want to break into the lineup as a hitter, you need to go perform in BP like that's your game. So if you're looking to break into the lineup as a hitter, BP is the game for you. So you're going to set up your pregame routine and everything you do as a hitter to ensure that when you're taking batting practice, you are taking the best batting practice you possibly can. So the coaches that are watching batting practice are going, yep, he's winning BP right there. They notice you. Now, there's some rules also to this for you bench guys that are trying to get on the field. You can't whine about playing time. That's your playing time. So when you put the uniform on, you're not in charge, okay? He's in charge. You just showed for the third week in a row how great a BP guy you are. You're not in charge, he's in charge. So when you go to the game and you put the uni on, now you are what's called at the ready. At the ready means I'm ready for a pinch hit in the first inning. I'm ready for a pinch hit in the ninth inning. I maybe go down in the sixth or seventh when pitching changes start happening. I may go to the tunnel, hit a little bit off the tee. So you're always loose. So instead of just sitting your butt on the bench the whole game, run and stretch, and you're always at the ready. Even if it's a pinch run situation or a late inning defensive replacement, you are at the ready at all times because you're only going to get one shot. The head coach is going to go, you're in, go get him. And if you look awful and not ready for it, he may never trust you off the bench again. So make sure during the games, your job now is to be ready to go win an at-bat, to be put into the game. So you need to be very ready to go. You want to avoid the cooler end of the dugout. And I don't say temperature cooler. What I mean is the far end of the dugout. So the coaches are always going to coach nearest the plate. And here's what happens at the other end of the dugout. That's where the coolers are. That's where the trainer is, okay? That's what we call the cooler end of the dugout. Misery loves company. And the guys are a little toxic, little snarky. They should be in the game, but they're not. Those little snarky, punky kids, and look, in college they're there, and in pro ball they're there. You got to stay away from them. Even if they're your friends, don't be in proximity. When I say stay away from, I'm literally meaning stay away from. Because in the midst of a game, the coach has got 100 things going on, and something goes on down there that's out of laughter happens when there shouldn't be laughter. Or something happens, they're trying to be quiet about it. And he has one glance, and he records instantly those three guys. You don't want to be those three guys. In lineup players, goal setting for you guys. These are players, JV, varsity, college, pro ball. You're in the lineup. You're an everyday player, and you're going to set some individual goals, not team goals, individual goals for yourself. And what this is going to be is what you want to achieve at the end of the season. I want to hit 400. I want to steal X number of bases. As a pitcher, I want my ERA to be this, or I want my metrics to be in a certain way. Pitchers, be careful about strikeouts and velocity and things like that as a goal. We'll talk about that later, but these are statistical goals that you want to achieve. Now, there's some things you need to consider before setting that goal. The first one is it realistic? Is the goal that you're setting to achieve at the end of the year a realistic goal? And that realistic goal is based off of your output last year, last full season. So if you're a hitter and you hit 200, don't set a goal to hit 400. That is unrealistic, okay? Can you dream of that? Sure. But remember, we're talking about things that we can control. That's what this is going to really be about. Things that you can place under your control. And to double your batting average is not realistic based off of what you did last year. So you want to set that goal high enough that you can build a routine around, which we'll talk about in a minute. But you also want to set it low enough to where if you're tracking toward it or you get it, you can move it up. See, if you are a 200 hitter and you want to hit 400 and you fall short, and 4 weeks into the season, you know you're falling short of that, lowering that goal already feels like a defeat. But if I set it at 275 as a 200 hitter, well, now I'm tracking toward that and beyond. I can set it for 295 or 300. I can raise the goal. So now it's like I'm winning and I'm adjusting toward winning more. Now let's talk about the cool part about building this routine of what we call indies. This is part of your individual drill. And in the fall, your indies are expanded. And then as you go through the fall, your individual stuff gets compressed to become a pregame. So the pregame for infielders, that's going to be your mitt work. For outfielders, that's going to be your route or your box drills. That's the defensive stuff. For your pitchers, obviously, that's going to be your flat ground, star drills, PFPs, all the drills that you do, whatever they are before the game. Your individual routine to get ready to pitch or play. For hitters, that's their hitting routine. What they do off the tee, what they do on the toss, and what they do in the cage to get ready to execute or perform for that day. So, here's what we do. We take that big, hairy, audacious goal, whatever it is. I want to hit 400 this year. I want to, whatever that mark is. And you reverse engineer that to the weekly checkpoints. Meaning these are the goals that I'm working with this week. So in high school, your season runs from Monday to Saturday. Off days are Sundays. At least in Florida, they're mandatory off days. In college, typically your off day is going to be on a Monday because Sunday is where you're getting on the road. That's the early game out. So these are when we sit down with the players on those off days and we have a checkpoint and we look at the data and said, okay, what was your goal for this? If you're going to hit 400, you need to get 5 hits a week, let's say. You reverse engineer that back. How many at bats you're going to get, how many games you're going to play. And so my goal this week for these 4 games or whatever it is to get 5 hits this week. Then we sit down and we look and we say, did you get those hits? Did you get 5 hits this week? And the answer is either going to be yes or no. And what we do with that, and it's very simple, and this goes on in good programs every week with most all of those 9 hitters that are consistent in the lineup. If you got your 5 hits or more, awesome. Now what we do is we keep the same routine, the exact same hitting routine. The tee work's the same, the toss is the same, and the BP is the same. And now we prepare for the upcoming opponent. When it's the same, the structure is the same. We're not changing anything. We're just preparing on, okay, we got 2 conference games this week. This guy throws hard, this guy is a left-hander, whatever. So you always want to model your pregame to who you're playing. But we don't change the underlying routine itself. But if you didn't get your hits, like if you got 1 hit the whole week, then there's some questions that have to go on. Did you get you out? or did they get you out? Now, if you got you out, maybe you're swinging at pitches you should take and taking pitches you should swing at. Well, if you are, yes, that's exactly what I was doing. I was swinging at bad pitches. Then that's what you program in to your hitting routine to fix it. So you change that slump quickly so 1 week doesn't linger into the next week. That's how we continuously course correct so that we stay on pace to hit 400, to be a Gold Glove outfielder, to do this or do that. These are these weekly checkpoints, generally on the off day, that we'll have a report and we have these conversations. Did you meet it? Great. Keep everything the same. Prepare for the next opponent. You didn't? Did they get you out? Because if they made great plays or the umpire banged you, nothing you can do about that. Or did you get yourself out? If you got yourself out, then we'll work on why you got yourself out and we'll change that hitting routine just slightly so we avert that slump immediately. Now, I want to talk briefly about the scheduling of the season. And I know the players and parents that are watching this, you don't have a lot of control over the actual scheduling. But this is important. I need you to listen to this. So you've got conference games and non-conference games, districts and non-district games. One is meaningful for the district championship, and one is not meaningful for the district championship. The non-conference games, they do have a very, very important purpose. But for us, when we're scheduling these things, those games are strategically placed as best we can to help us hone our minimum level of execution to play in the district level. Let me break that down a little simply for you. Never play your opponent. That is a giant mistake. What'll happen is you'll see teams when they're playing other teams and they're playing to their opponent, they'll play hot and cold. They'll play up to their opponent and then down to another opponent. We want to eliminate that. What you're doing is you're playing toward your minimum level of execution related to your district. So my minimum level of execution is this. As a pitcher, it is X number of innings, it's X number of hits, it's X numbers of what. All your data. This is my level of execution that I need to perform to win in conference, in district. You take that same level of performance to your non-conference games. And usually the non-conference games allows you to work a little bit more cerebrally on your gamesmanship, your savvy, hitting behind runners on really purposefully, thinking 2 pitches ahead of time. Pitchers, sequencing your pitches in a manner where you're controlling your volume. Instead of an 8-pitch at bat, you're trying to work for a 4-pitch at bat. So you have something specific on those non-conference games that's related to how you're going to have to play that conference game in 4 days. So you want to play to your minimum level of execution, always in preparation to win your next district game. So those non-conference games, many times guys will let down on it. And that's natural. I get that. It's also times to get guys a little bit of rest. So instead of your starter going out and having to go 100 pitchers, maybe he goes out and gives you 40, then you turn it over to the next guy to get them innings. Absolutely. But remember, the level of play is never changing. Your bottom floor, your level of execution is for everybody, and that should always match what you need to do and your ability to execute against your district opponents. Now, it's important also to make sure that you're setting one primary goal. Now, you can have more than one goal, but really it's one primary goal that you're going to build a routine around. Whether you're a pitcher and you're building your bullpen routine, your flat ground routine, all of that to support your goal, or you're a hitter for your hitting routine to support that goal, which I'm going to expand on in just a moment. But it's important to have one primary goal. You can have another goal. I wouldn't set more than 2. I never let guys set more than 2 goals. One primary goal that we can focus our process, pitchers process, hitters process, to achieve, and then maybe a secondary goal, like maybe you're a base stealer. You want to hit 300 and you want to steal 40 bases. You also have to consider when you're setting these goals or this particular goal, does it need the input of others? For example, if you set an RBI goal, I want to drive in 80 runs this year because you're a middle of the lineup person. Do you have guys on base that can do that? Are there opportunities for you to hit with guys on base? And it's not, and I'm not trying to dissuade you from that, but that's a good secondary goal. The primary goal for hitters is hits. That's the one I want you to set. And if you're a thumper in the middle of the lineup, maybe it's going to be home runs. If you're not a thumper, it might be extra base hits, something like that. But does it require the input of others? If it does require the input of others, then you need to go to those others on your team and say, hey, look, guys, I want to drive in 80 runs this year, but I need, you got the two guys in front of you, maybe the 9-hole guy. I need you guys to be on base. So what goal are you going to set to be on base more? And this is a conversation that we have going on in college a lot in the dugouts, in January, that I can get a hitter like Ryan Friel was one of the guys that I coached in college, or that we coached in college. His goal was always stolen bases because he was Ryan Friel. The guys behind him were Brian Cox. He was trying to get RBIs. So he was trying to get hits, certainly, but the opportunities that Friel presented by stealing second base so much afforded him RBI opportunities. So we set goals for both of those guys. How many bases are you getting? And of course, you got a hit to get on base. And then how many runs are you able to drive in? So you have this dialogue if you have a goal that other people have to be on base for, or have to lend to. You have to talk to them and say, what's your goal going to be? And you have to align those up so everybody wins and achieves their goals. There's also some goals that you can set that are accolade-based goals. If you want to be an All-American, if you want to be All-Conference, All-District, All-Star team, whatever that is, that's a legitimate goal to shoot for. I want to be the MVP. Perfectly fine. You have to understand, though, a lot of that is out of your control, those actual awards, because now you're competing against people that you may never see on the field. They play in different districts, they may play in different cities, may play in different states. You're not competing against them. At the end of the day, you'll get those if you make your routine right and you course correct correctly. And here's another little tip for you. The guys that got it last year, what did they hit? What were their pitching numbers like? How many stolen bases did they have? Is that something that you can actually attain? Is it something that's there for you? I'll give you a quick example here. Brian Cox, I've mentioned him before. He went to Florida State University in the late 90s when Florida State was going to College World Series all the time. He was a guy that we coached in college. And at FSU, he was there for 2 years. And his first year at FSU, he hit 260, which for him was not very good. Now, he hit 260 at an elite Division I, top 10 Division I. That's not that bad, but for him, he didn't like that. The very next year, his senior year, he hit 398. But I talked to him about his process because he made All-American, first team All-American his senior year. And I talked to him a little bit about that process. Was that a goal for him? He says, no, it wasn't, because he was a 260 hitter. And he didn't like being a 260 hitter because with us, he was dominant. And he thought that was completely out of the picture for him. So what he did was he changed his mindset to, and I asked him, this is what he is. He wanted to get a X number of hits a week. He was looking to get 8 hits a week. And he was going to do that by, this is his words, he wanted to win BP every day. See, the year he hit 260, he was hitting in the Bombers group, with the J.D. Drews and the McDougals and those guys. And he was trying to hit with those guys in batting practice. He was a 175-pound fast outfielder guy. He had home run power, but that really wasn't what he did. He hit the ball all over the place. He stole bases. He created havoc. So when he hit 260, he was hitting out of character for himself. He said he didn't set a goal to hit 395. He set his goal to get 8 hits a week and win batting practice. He wanted to walk away from the cage and say, that's the best batting practice today of anybody on this field. That way, when he goes into the game, he is confident in his ability to hit, not just hit home runs. That's what he did as for his goal setting. And he was awarded first team All-American. And they ended up going to the College World Series. And now we've got to understand how this plugs into the season. So you have to understand the baseball season, and any season athletically is split into 3 parts. The first third, the middle third, and the last third. Now I'm going to break those out individually. I want to talk about the first third, obviously, first. So the first third of the season. Everybody is loving it the first third of the season. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's excited to be there. You're excited for the new year. It's new. It's the next year. You can't wait to get out there. Everybody is showing up early. Everybody is staying late. And you're working and you have purpose. And it's just exactly right. Okay? All teams start the first third of the season that way. Then we get into the middle third. And the middle third is, I'm going to tell you how they all work together at the end. But the middle third is when the newness starts to wear off. You've been on the field a little bit. You got a few games under your belt. You're kind of grinding now. And this is when the first little bit of adversity starts to come into play. Get a little ding here, get a little ding there. Guys, injuries start to show up, or I should say predispositions. Usually the injuries start showing up. Now you start buddy taping a finger together, or catchers, you get thumbed, or whatever the case may be. Now guys start not showing up as early. They don't stay late. Instead of the process being exciting, which the excitement does wane away, the process starts to become mundane. You're hitting it every day, you're out doing your workout, and one day kind of starts lingering into another. This is when separation really begins between players and between teams, in the middle, when the newness is over and the monotony of the season begins. And here's what happens a lot. Check yourself on this. Pitchers, players, doesn't matter. Your routine, your pregame routine, instead of it having purpose, you start checking the box to get it in. That's the first symptom to the middle, starting to kind of grind on you a little bit, lean on you a little bit. You'll go to your pregame tee work and you're just getting it in. You go to pregame toss, you're just kind of getting it in. Pitchers, same way. You go out to your T&C or you go out to your flat ground work and you're just kind of getting it in. Instead of getting it purposefully, these 10 throws, I'm going to throw between this spot and that spot. As a hitter, I'm getting long through contact. I got to trigger it. Instead of having purpose with your pregame, instead of having purpose with your postgame, your recovery practices, you start skipping it. Your stabilization, you start kind of waving through the bands instead of purposefully driving that band to stay healthy. That's what starts separating players and teams. And you'll start noticing a little stat change, just little bits here and there. It'll be a couple points on the batting average. It'll be a little bit on the ERA. It'll be a win and a loss here, that kind of thing. Now, those wins and losses start to get a little more weighty in the middle because now you're building that body of work of wins and losses, district and non-conference, but mainly district. So this is when you're tested. And good coaches know how to win the middle. What you've got to do is you have to recognize on a calendar. Don't recognize when you feel bad. On the calendar, that's the first third, that's the middle third. And mark it on the calendar. This is where I have to win my process. This is where I have to continuously focus on my purpose. This is when I have to do all of these things to put myself and my team in position to win this last third. Don't trust to feel it. Look at a calendar, January all the way to May. that mark out the middle, and that's your goal for the middle. That's an additional goal. I am winning my process. I am winning my recovery. This is when everything is going to continue my focus toward the end, because you can't see the end. You definitely don't see the beginning, because that's way back there. I don't remember January and March. And in March, I can't see the district tournament. I got too much regular season left. So mark it on your calendar. This is where you're going to win the middle so you can win the end by winning all your little processes, all the things you do, all those little winning habits. Mark it on your calendar so you can be reminded of it. Now we're here at the end. This is the last third of the season. And here's what happens. Now everybody's between dinged up, like injured and hurt. Everybody's floating in between injured and hurt. Losses mean a great deal more in conference, in district. They mean a lot more. And what happens is these teams really start to separate. You start really seeing where the district championship, that team's going to win. And what ends up happening is if you're on a team that loses the middle, right? You got to win the middle. If you start losing the middle, you're going like this. And coaches that know they need to win the middle, they're staying right here. They may go up, but they're letting those other teams fail. Every coach does it. Every good coach does this. They're looking every week at the paper or news online or whatever it may be, and they're seeing who's falling off. And they're seeing, okay, they're not competing anymore. We don't really have to worry. Now who are we really competing against for the district championship? Because they're losing the middle, they're not recovering, and now they're at the end. And here's what happens every time. Somebody figures out, whether it's the coach or the player or somebody, holy smokes, we got 3 weeks until the district tournament or the conference tournament. We better turn this thing around. And then they start panicking. They start chasing wins, and they start really trying to manufacture wins. They panic. Where the other teams that won the middle, put themselves in position to win the end, they're just staying right here. So all the work they put in, they're peaking at the end at the right time. Where these guys that didn't win the middle, that didn't pay attention in the middle, what they're trying to do is they're trying to scramble and hustle to make the tournament at the end. And it usually never works out because they're relying far too much on luck than they are on skill. They didn't pay attention in the middle. They let their process leak. They were checking the box. Now they scramble at the end and they're trying to get their process back. Where this team, they didn't allow that to happen. They won the middle, so they're in position to win the end. Get your free Hitters Toolkit right now at luposbaseball.com.